Hey everybody. All right, I'm doing my presentation on post-graduation employment and our potential opportunities. Most of my presentation will be geared towards a master's degree and licensure, but I will try and have tried to incorporate some pieces where there is a non-licensure option. I know most of us are probably geared towards LPC, but I do recognize that some people might just want the degree. Or may not go through licensure right away outside of school, but still want to utilize their degree while they are in employment before they go through licensure or the process of it. So as we enter the workforce, we can look for a broad range of jobs, again, depending on what it is exactly you want to do and what your end goal is. We can look for jobs outside of the typical scope of just therapist, counselor, or LPC. We can look for things such as program director or coordinator of various organizations and institutions, such as the correctional program coordinator of human services. Well, I mixed those two together. Correctional program coordinator or human services coordinator, possibly behavioral health division manager, life skills specialist or trainer. So keep those options in mind when you are searching, asking around, looking for post-graduation employment. Everything I've read, blogs, research, articles, any of that good stuff, a lot of the people on there, a lot of the authors recommend that it is very important to, as you're job searching, to figure out what it is you want to do and get to know people, to volunteer. I know that we have so much free time right now to volunteer, which is why this presentation is several days late, but free time, I know it's limited, but even a couple times a year, volunteer in different organizations to get your foot in the door, see what you like, see what you don't like. Our internships are huge as well as networking. We already saw a presentation, I believe, by AD about associations, and a lot of job finds, even in our career selection, is all about who you know. So make sure you're networking, you're getting your foot in the door via internships, and get out there in the community and volunteer when you can at different places. It'll help you to begin to meet people and see what you like and what you don't like, possibly. Within the range and scope of counseling, different fields to think about and consider as you are going through school, graduating, different fields of counseling employment. There's child abuse, DV, military and veterans community, marriage and family, victim advocacy, substance abuse, rehab. So those are all different fields in which organizations and institutions can kind of fall under. So that's something to think about. Even community, community mental health. All of those are different fields in which organizations classify under while you're looking for jobs. The next section is my biggest section here on the handout, and it is organizations for employment. Again, this is where you'll see most of my presentation licensed options, but I did try and include non-licensed options as well. Sorry, the list is a little short on that side. For licensed options, first and foremost is private practice. I know that people probably want to lean more towards that past obtaining a license right away, which is totally great. But keep in mind something with that some websites that I read pointed out is that keep in mind that you are a business person as well. And so your scope of talent or skills needs to be a little broader because you're going to have to think through some business components as well. You could work for the Department of Veteran Affairs, the VA, counseling individuals and families, spouses through their loved ones' issues with PTSD and anger management. Correctional facilities and prisons, huge need here. Again, doing individual or group therapy, and basically you're helping inmates both set goals as well as prepare them to have a slightly, normal transition once they are going back into regular life. Working for state agencies and providing support services. This will be your Department of Children, your Department of Family Services, those are combined. Department or Office of Disability and Elderly Affairs. Those are the two separate departments. I can't even read my own handout. But different state agencies like that. Residential treatment facilities. This would require you to do temporary supervision supervision for at-risk youth, autistic children or youth, disabled. You have schools as an option. And by this, I don't mean guidance counselor. I think sometimes we get, school guidance counselor or that type of thing confused with actually being a school counselor. So those are two different degrees, two different degree options. But within schools, and sometimes some of the things I mentioned require extra certification, sometimes not, so you'll need to research that a little bit. But within schools, elementary, middle, high, or even colleges, you can work with families, teachers, students with behavioral issues, identifying needs, and creating advocacy for students who may need it with special needs, learning disabilities, etc. Weight loss camps. I thought this one was incredibly fascinating, so I put it on there. But you would oversee most likely behavioral coaches and practice a lot of CBT with stress management, setting goals, that type of thing. Community-based agencies, community mental health, nonprofit organizations offering therapy and resources to a variety of people, and that just all depends on the organization you're working for. That could be veterans, families, children, DV victims, and I threw disaster relief on there. I have a friend who just got back from working in a refugee camp over in Greece, and they've got counselors on the ground and going through rotation to help the volunteers process through their vicarious trauma. So that's an option. You can do something like that. Inpatient or outpatient detoxification centers, inpatient 24-hour high risk, outpatient day treatment. You could do hospitals, family grief counseling, doing evaluations, working with behavioral issues, anything that would fall in that realm. Halfway homes. You could work either in voluntary substance abuse, court mandated mental health issues, and basically your job there would be helping them transition back into the world and be successful. Geriatric related facilities. This one I can attest to just in my own volunteer experience, helping in retirement homes, senior living communities, short-term and long-term care. Huge need to help the elderly process through what they've lost, or what they're currently losing, memory, family, physical functions, freedoms. Churches and religious work, being in seminary, I hope we have a good idea of that. Crisis intervention, working in emergency settings, helping to evaluate and assess the psychological health of a person or for potential suicidality, as well as either working with the survivor and or the victim, family members. And telemedicine, working with therapy in via chat, phone, and video chat settings. Gotta love the modern world, right? Non-licensure options, you could do case management, and that's helping meet needs and provide advocacy. You could be a developmental specialist working with families of children who have developmental lost my place. Still lost my place. Okay, disabilities or delays. Working on communication skills, coaching parents. You could be a career counselor. Again, this is one of those ones that might require extra certification, might not. You just have to look into that. But working in colleges, businesses, and helping people transition into the workplace, assisting with making choices, aptitude testing. Being a residential counselor, working with developmental or mental disabilities, homeless population, and there you'd be teaching basic life skills. And the last one that I have listed, at least for now, would be being a nanny. No, sorry, that's under alternative careers. Sorry, I've done this presentation, recorded it 5 times, and my technology has messed up somehow. It's deleted it, it hasn't uploaded, so I'm all sorts of all over the place now. Alternative careers. Say you experience burnout, you're disillusioned, you don't want to be in the counseling field at all anymore. I provided just a couple of thought-provoking options. This is definitely not exhaustive. But if you want to still be able to use your degree, specifically in counseling, but not be a counselor, you could do authorship either for yourself or working with psychologists to help them write their books, co-author, edit, editor kind of thing. Consult with businesses and retail centers, working with them to make their processes better for their customers and customer service. Talk show host, I thought that was an interesting one. That could be podcast, radio, that type of thing. Entrepreneur, that's pretty general. Administrator, because you know how people work. You'd probably be good in an HR department setting as well. And nanny, this is where it belongs. You can actually make a lot of money having a master's in counseling and being a nanny. You might want to move to a bigger city like New York or LA or Chicago, but you could make almost just as much money being a nanny with a master's in counseling as you can being a counselor. So that's promising. Underserved populations. So the last part of this presentation, and I'll try and run through this because you've already watched me for almost 11 minutes. Underserved populations and facilities to consider. They are underserved for a reason, because they don't have enough help. So as we're moving out into the field and graduating and licensed, these are good things to keep in mind, and maybe some of our internships or volunteer experience could be in one of these areas to see if maybe we could be of use. So populations to consider, multiracial clients, Appalachian culture. It might sound weird, but I actually come from kind of that culture in my family, and it needs help. Native American culture, dual minority, so if you are a different ethnicity or race other than white, and say then you have a developmental or a physical disability, you'd be dual minority. Immigrants and migrant farm workers, refugees, limb loss clients, underserved students, so those who would be like on student paid lunch, and traumatic brain injury clients. All of those are very underserved people groups, and I'm sure that there are more out there, but just things to keep in mind. And underserved facilities to consider. Correctional facilities, state mental hospitals, federally qualified health centers, Indian health facilities, and certified rural, right, health clinics. They are in desperate need of people. Think if we could get a few Western Sem graduate classes for the next few years in those facilities, could help our area a ton, honestly. Then I've listed my references where I found a lot of my information, and at the bottom of my handout included an additional resource. I've not read this book, but I have glanced through it online, and it looks pretty neat. It's 101 Careers in Counseling, so that might be a really good resource. If you get it and it's not, I apologize, but I'm sorry. It seemed good from what I reviewed. So I hope this presentation was helpful. Thanks for bearing with me, and